So far, there have been over 250 student submissions for the Golden Hop Logo Design Student Challenge. Everyone who participated gained a portfolio piece, but also valuable practice experience. There's even been students who found a client by posting their work for this challenge on their social media. I'm going to go over some hand-selected projects throughout this video to give you guys a chance to see what other students did. Not only that, I'll be providing some constructive criticism on a few ideas and talk about overall logo presentations. I have never seen such strong portfolio-worthy work throughout my many design challenges we have had over the years. Choosing a handful of student features was a pretty tough challenge. This logo design brief will remain a permanent student challenge as part of the graphic design intermediate level course. So please feel free to submit your work at any time in the Facebook student groups, the course, or on Instagram. You can tag me at Lindsay Marsh Design. So let's get started with the first batch of projects. This one had a great presentation. Very well done. And what I like about it is it has lots of flexibility. You can see it in lots of different adaptations. The logo has a traditional feeling, especially with the brewery having a little bit of a outline to the main brewery word. And it also has restaurant a little bit smaller, which is exactly what the client brief detailed, that brewery was more important than restaurant. So they were really listening to the client brief. I like the rounded look to the outside typography. I think it helps to make this an incredibly balanced logo. If you divide it in half, the left and right sides are nice and balanced. The little small accents on the left and right of the Golden Hop also add a traditional feel without making it look busy. I thought the presentation on the mock-ups were some of the best seen out of all 250 submissions. I thought the bottle looked incredibly realistic. I feel like I want to reach out and grab it. I feel this has a very high-end feel, kind of really reserved, exclusive type feeling, like this would be kind of an expensive place to go. Of course, according to the client brief, they were more fun and casual and lighthearted, and I feel like this is a little bit more of a luxury take on the brand, but I still think it looks amazing. And unfortunately, sometimes you have situations where you have names that don't quite always abbreviate really well. So in this case, it's the Golden Hop Brewery. They decided to do GHB for Golden Hop Brewery. The abbreviation for GHB, it's also a central nervous system depressant. It's commonly known as the club drug or the date rape drug. So in some countries where this abbreviation GHB is used to refer to as the date rape drug, you might not want to have that association with your brand. And that's something that the person who created this did not know. And honestly, when it was brought up to me by another student, I had no idea what GHB was. I knew it as the nickname, but I didn't know the official name of it. So it's definitely one of those things where you need to make sure you talk with your client about these issues if they do come up. And it could be an easy change. It could be that the is brought into the abbreviations, or you just had GH and just had that as abbreviation. So this is kind of something to think about when doing this. I don't want to put a cloud over this because I think this was probably one of the best presented option in terms of how they presented everything. And they have kind of this condensed version of the logo, but also this full name. I thought it was really well done. Next up is Rebecca. And she was the only one that used a pheasant or a bird as her mascot. And I thought it was really unique. And she went through brand strategy and she displays all of this in her presentation. The Golden Hop's mascot is based on the golden pheasant to tie in with the name. So I thought this was really well done. She's an illustrator, so she did this herself using the pen tool. And I thought it was a really neat illustration to use as a logo. So this is how it looks on the logo itself. So she has one without and one with, which is really good to have. If you have a mascot, you need to have kind of a simple version of the logo, which is really important. She has the established dates to help balance out this logo, the left and the right side. I like how it's rounded at the top to fit in the elements. And it looks really good on the bottles. And especially on the cans, where she was able to duplicate the illustration and make it a little bit bigger down below. Also a really nice, approachable, soft color palette to pair with the brand. And next up, we have the Best in Show winner. This one I felt like adhered to the client brief, but also is flexible and adaptable. First of all, remember from the client brief to prioritize the word restaurant over brewery. They also have this interesting balance between traditional and modern that I find refreshing. The logo has a very traditional lockup or layout and also uses a serif typeface that has just a hint of character and tradition. The negative space in the O was a nice surprise. It has brighter colors and it tends to be supportive of the lighthearted and fun narrative from the client brief. Also, they use this chunky sans serif typeface for the word brewery to further soften the logo. The logo itself is well balanced, and I think it adapts really well onto bottles and other branded items. Another fantastic entry. What I like the most about this one is the playfulness of the typography, how it has this almost wave look through it. And also the additional accents on the top and the bottom help to balance the logo. I like the very traditional serif typeface that was chosen for the bottom for brewery. And once again, they highlighted brewery over restaurant, although restaurant is important. They have these little extra strokes that give it a little bit more detail, and they have some texture used behind it. This kind of goes more of the traditional route, but I think it works really well. It feels way more playful because of the movement in the typography. If we didn't have this nice movement of the typography, it could feel very stiff. I almost chose this as a Best in Show winner, but I did recognize something that was different on the client brief. So for the client brief, the client is called the Golden Hop Brewery. In this case, they added an S, the Golden Hops Brewery. And because they changed the original name, the client would obviously need them to change the logo to remove the S. And honestly, I think removing the S would actually make it look really good, because right now you have this little extra spacing between the P and the S, and it makes the S feel a little disconnected from the word hop. So I would probably encourage them to remove the S in the hops, and I think you have a really, really strong contender for Best in Show. And I chose this as a top 10 project because I thought it was a different approach than what other people were doing. This kind of still remains simplistic and very reserved and traditional, yet it's interesting with this combination symbol, this combination logo mark with the hop and the beer mug. And it combines together beautifully. And the symbol alone is something I absolutely love. I think the typography is good. It's nice and clean. I think the playfulness comes and the lightheartedness comes with the slight arching of the typography. I think if it was straight across, once again, it might have felt too strict and a little bit too simple. But I think that nice curve adds a lot to it. This one went way on the traditional side, but in a really interesting way. You notice how a lot of these choices have movement with typography. They're not just going straight from left to right. This one is great because it has all these elements nestled together, almost like a puzzle piece, and all these ornaments around it that really give it this traditional London pub vibe, which was also talked about in the client brief. I think it looks really good on the sign, as well as all of the other materials. I think this is really well done. It took a lot of time for him to be able to do this, and it took a lot of sketching too. To be able to do something so ornamental, you have to kind of get that sketching down, and then you have to play with all the spacing and the typography. It takes hours and hours to really get everything together and pieced together so there's not huge gaps between certain elements. Everything is really nice, and I think he did an excellent job with this. Another fantastic entry. This one takes a seal version of the logo, so it's completely encapsulated in a seal or a circle, and of course because of that the balance is almost perfect. You have this wonderfully illustrated and drawn hop, which adds kind of this traditional character. It also has these lines that go across that helps to fill in the gap between the illustration and the typography. And it also gives this nice spacing between it so that they can breathe, but it also provides a little bit of the flair or little ornamental details that's needed in a traditional logo. I thought this one had one of the better illustrated hops. I like the slight angle to the hop instead of just being straight up and down, adds a little bit of movement and character. Also with some of the different layers of strokes that you see around the seal, also give it that definition and kind of the ornamental detail to give it that traditional feel. Also thought the name was balanced well with the size of the logo mark. They both pair well. There's not one bigger than the other. When people go, well, what's the proper sizing between a logo mark and a logo type? And this is a good example of that in action. The only comment I have for the can, they have kind of these random food items assorted, and it takes away from the fact that it is a restaurant, and that's why they did it, but it is a brewery. So, I might do some different kind of details of that, maybe things in the brewery process, or, different kinds of food, because it does seem kind of like random food items, like a pineapple and a pear. But to maybe kind of focus more on kind of what they serve, or to have something different that's not food out there, because you don't want to ever kind of see the food and go, whoa, that's just the most random food put together, like shrimp and, all the stuff. And it could kind of be a little unappetizing. But I think it looks good on the can. The logo itself was great. It's just one of those little fine presentation details. This one decided to combine the hop and the typography together by placing the typography in the center. And it looks pretty good here. I also love the typography choice for the golden hop. It has this chunky serifs to it that adds character, but a boldness that makes it easy to read. It looks fantastic on the can with all those metallic accents. This is probably one of my favorite shots, and it's the power of how mock-ups can really help your design come to life. The only issue I might have with this logo is that balance between the large hop and the typography. When made very, very small, you might lose the text and not be able to read it. So I do think there could be an issue there with legibility and adaptability of the logo. But very well done. This one looked amazing with the gold accents and rustic feeling. The mountain laurels that adorn the outside ring add wonderful details to the logo. The sans serif typeface chosen helps to offset the traditional accents. The ribbons on the left and right that tuck into the laurels give the logo a little bit of movement and depth. The only issue I had with this logo is the OG in place of the and or ampersand. There could be a meaning for OG that maybe I didn't understand. Original gangster is one meaning, but that really doesn't fit this traditional logo. So it could just be a simple typographic error that can easily be corrected. One other small note is the contrast with the white typography on the yellow ribbons might not be enough, so maybe switching that to black on yellow might make the text and the ribbons a little more readable. This is one of my favorite mock-up shots of the 250 projects submitted so far. The added texture on top and the gold foil properties make it the perfect portfolio cover shot. For those who have yet to tackle this challenge, know that there are hundreds of possible right variations of this logo. There is no perfect logo. The good news is that even though you've seen lots of different takes on the logo, there is still room for more exploration of new ideas and variants.